Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, and I'm hanging out with. I have a lot of my heroes in the show, but probably one of my biggest heroes and closest friends, Mr. Mark Simon. What's going on, dude?
Hey, Tony, always great to have an opportunity to sit and hang for a bit.
Yeah, I am digging your ensemble, sir.
I dressed up for you. This is all for you, buddy.
I appreciate it, dude. It's like the sparkles brings out the color of your eyes, sir.
It's always fun in the morning. Got to get the energy pumping.
Just a wee bit. The fact that you're not caffeinated still blows my mind. Um, so I'm curious. Well, I'm not curious. I know who the hell you are, but you know the drill. Um, tell my audience who the hell you are and why you're here.
I'm here because I love you, Tony.
Love you, man.
I am the godfather of storyboarding, as I've been known for a number of years now. Uh, I have worked in both live action and animation, and a lot of productions that include both and hybrid productions. I wrote the Bible of Storyboarding, Storyboards, Motion, and Art, produced all the storyboarding courses on LinkedIn Learning. I've been doing it for over 35 years, worked on over 6,000 productions. Over 60 of them are feature films. Uh, I've written 13 books, hundreds of articles for things like Animation Magazine, awmn.com, Cinefx, you name it. Um, I helped develop Storyboard Pro. I helped the engineers on developing it so it worked for live action production as well as animation. So no, I'm deep in it. I love the industry. I love every aspect of it. I love storyboarding. So that's the basics of me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, always a pleasure. Sure, 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 sir. Always a pleasure, sir. Uh, and because I know one, how busy you are. Two, I know what your daily rate is, and I know how much you charge, even if I take up an hour of your time. So, and I'm going to bug you about that later because I think it's an interesting thing.
Mm.
So, to everyone listening, he has a few projects usually that he's working on, and I was joking with him a couple of months back that I called his number and the phone rang about four times and I was like excited because I was like, oh cool, I actually get to leave him a message. He always picks up. I actually get to leave him a voicemail, and you answered the phone. I was like, dang it, man. I thought I was going to go to voicemail. I said, do you want me to let it go to voicemail? um and I'm trying to remember, was it that time or another time? I called you one point and you answered the phone and you were in Italy. And I was like,
Oh
why
yeah.
are you answering the phone? You're in Italy. I'm like, dude, quit talking to me. So oh yeah, yeah. That's just, I'm like, dude, I
Well,
appreciate the love, but damn.
I am a workaholic, but the nice thing about being really efficient with the way I work and in the hours that I put in, but it's all, my own volition, that I do it in such a way that I can stop and talk to the people that I want to. So, including when my wife comes into my studio or if my kids visit or call, I will stop and talk to them, and I still get all my work done. Um, but there's life. Life happens. So, and I like to inject my workday with life.
God dang it, sir. Quit making sense. It's like what I aspire to be. It's like my wife and kid come in and I'm like, you realize I'm in the middle of a recording, right? So it's like there
Oh,
was
they know when not to bother me. I mean,
okay.
it's if I'm recording, that's a different thing. I won't stop a recording for them.
There was a
Um,
what was it? Brad Pitt in, is it World War Z? One of those things. It's the guy who I aspire to be. They're trying to get away from all these zombies and they're being really quiet. And then his cell phone rings and it's his
oh
wife.
yeah.
And he's like, and no spoilers. It's not really a spoiler, but the fact that it triggers all the zombies around him, and he's answering, "Hey, hey, hey, no, no, and everything's fine. How's it
Oh
going?"
yeah. He's on the motorcycle at
I
that
was
point
like,
or something,
I was
or
like,
or is walking with the bike. Yeah.
and it's like, I'm like, I want to get to that level of cool. Not,
Yeah.
you don't realize what the hell you just did. It's like, no, 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 I'm cool. Yeah, yeah, what's going on?
It wasn't her fault. She didn't know. So,
Love it. Okay, enough rambling. I want to ask you a couple of questions, dude.
yeah, we're going to talk about getting started in the industry, aren't we?
Yes, because you might know a few tips or tricks and
I
figure
got
out,
started. Yeah.
yeah, figure out if everything's the same, considering you did this when there were, if I'm correct, rotary phones still a thing when you started? So,
They existed, but they were not the mainstay. At least when I started in Hollywood. I mean, I've been a professional artist for over 45 years.
okay,
But I moved to Hollywood in 1986. That's when I got
okay.
my start at Roger Corman Studio.
So I think we're push button phones then. So,
It was push button phones and no mobile phones.
yes. Okay. So I bring that up because in my opinion, I feel like a lot of times are the rules changing just because the times and the technology change, or do you?
Some rules do, but a lot of things that I did can still work, with the exception of when there's COVID shutdowns. So, but we'll get into that.
Okay. All right. So, um, I've got a question, and it's like I might as well ask Star Wars versus Star Trek, Mac versus PC, Prince versus Michael Jackson. So here's a question.
Okay.
Is an education necessary to work in the industry?
All right. So I'm going to be a little tricky with my answer here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna separate out education to look at it two different ways.
Okay.
So is training necessary? Absolutely. Is formal education necessary? No. So let's talk about the differences here, because I don't want people to think that I'm just blowing smoke out my ass here. Um, so training can be in a form of an apprenticeship. It can be in the form of working at a studio at a low level, understanding, asking questions, being there, learning, and being taught by the people above you, and hopefully accepting that information to get better. Online courses, like LinkedIn Learning. Um, there are a few courses on there other than mine that help people with how to learn animation and storyboarding and softwares and things like that. Um, all of that is hugely important. Does that mean you have to get a 4-year degree to get that information? Not at all. And so what I thought we could do is kind of go through this a little bit. Um, Now and this is coming for someone. I have a 4-year degree with a double major, and I've never once, in over 6,000 productions, I've never once been asked if I have an education in Hollywood. So that's why I say it's definitely not necessary. It can also be incredibly expensive to get a 4-year degree. And let's face it, a lot of people don't take advantage of what colleges really offer anyway. It's one of the things I taught my kids. I don't care about your grades. If you're going to go to school, learn. Come out better, knowing more. That's the only reason. I don't care about your grades. I want you to learn. And luckily, that's what they did. Grades follow if your attitude of wanting to get better starts it. Um, what gets you jobs is not your education. What gets you jobs are your credits. So make sure everything that you work on, if possible, is listed on IMDb. Of course, commercials and shorts aren't listed there, but movies and TV shows, a lot of times, a lot of us don't get posted on there automatically, but you can add information. Um, and building a great portfolio. And building a great portfolio does not mean always professional jobs. Your work is your work. So if you do your own things to prove what you can do, that hopefully it's portfolio quality. And when I first got into animation, I landed my first jobs because I had built a portfolio of my own work. And you don't have to say I did this on my own. You just say this is my work. Just
Hmm.
make sure it's original, because your work is your work. Even if you did something really cool as a school project, as long as it's an original piece that you did of your own, don't disqualify it by saying I did this at school. Did you do it? Yes. Okay. This is my work. people tend to disqualify student projects. But if it's an independent piece you did, it doesn't matter why you did it. If you did it, it's yours. Use it.
I do have a question on that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a well. There's two things I saw recently. One, I saw a video of this dude did this really cool motion graphics thing, but it was Pringles, but he did it on his own.
Hmm.
I saw another one that evidently the company did pay them to do this. It was a coffee thing, Cafe Bustelo, I think. Um, is there that little weird thing of I probably shouldn't put a brand in this, or does that matter?
It doesn't matter.
Cool.
Just don't say it was a paid thing. But
Yes.
now that said, what I don't like is when people do like a storyboard of an existing movie.
Yes.
Copying someone else's breakdowns is not storyboarding. Don't ever show some. I mean, look, if you want to practice a breakdown so you understand how they did the shots, it's fine, but that's not a portfolio piece. Don't ever do that. I mean, I had a piece that I remember years and years ago, because I've owned 2 animation studios over the years. And in one of my studios, there was actually a competition for a Kindle commercial, and we animated a piece for that. And we were not one of the winners. We made it to the short list, but we didn't win it. But that went in my portfolio, even though we didn't get paid to do it, because it was a cool looking piece. And yeah, it was ours. It was original. So that's why I keep stressing original. Now, as far as just one other thing I want to talk about, as far as a 4-year education, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. 4-year university can be incredibly expensive, and it's 4 years. You can learn any software in much less than 4 years, and buy it, own it, buy the computers, buy anything that you need to support it for less than the cost of a 4-year education. And no more working on your own, or doing some online courses or tech school or something, and be working in less than a year than waiting for 4 years going through university. So where's your money best spent? The degree is not going to mean shit to anybody in the industry unless you want to teach. If you want to
Yes.
teach, you need a 4-year degree.
As, as well as a master's.
I've taught at universities all over, and I don't have a master's. So,
Okay.
So would it help? Yeah, for some things, but I do it. I teach at university level, and I don't have one, so it's not always necessary. But if you do go to one, I had a double major of art and business with a focus on film, and I did that because I wanted to make money. That's why I wanted to understand business, marketing, accounting, every aspect of business, because that's, I like money. Money's good. Does money make you happy? No, spending money on things I like makes me happy. So, but I took advantage of college. I did things there, taking advantage of everything that was there. I mean, we had, it was one of the first schools that had a computerized animation stand. There were no animation courses. I was self-taught. But one of my professors had a tape-driven computerized animation bed, but no one was teaching or using it. So he just said, it's yours, just use it. So my senior year, I didn't have many hours to take, because I was averaging 19 to 21 hours a semester when I was in college, while working full time. So my senior year, I didn't have, I was only taking 11 or 12 hours to graduate, which for me was nothing. So I spent hours and hours and hours every day on this animation stand, and I wanted to do some really fancy stuff. So I designed and built a multiplane system to mount on top of it.
Wow.
And so I built some really cool, I animated some really cool stuff in multiplane back in 1985 and 86 that most people weren't doing. And I did it because I had learned reading like The Illusion of Life that you and I were talking about earlier, and a couple other Disney books about how they did the multiplaning work on Peter Pan. So reading those books told me everything I needed to know, and I built the system, tested it, and it worked. So it was very cool. And I like testing myself and pushing boundaries on things like that. But one of the other things that I did, one of my, I think it was in my junior year, in one of my English courses, we were given an assignment, which most people just kind of blow off. This assignment was interview someone in your field. Well, everything I did in every class, I always looked at how can I further myself and further my career. Now, I went to college in Nacogdoches, Texas. There's no animation studios in Nacogdoches. More than half the town is our students. So about 4.5 hours away was Dallas. So I went to the library and got a phone book because there was no internet or anything at the time. And I went through the yellow pages, found an animation studio, called and asked to speak to the owner. The owners are the only people I'm ever interested in talking to. And got him on the phone, told him that I'd like to interview him for a college paper because I want to take this seriously. It's like, if I have to write this paper, I want to meet someone who can actually help me. So he said, sure. We set up for the next Friday so I could just take one day off school and then spend the weekend in Dallas. I drove out there, met with him around lunch, and interviewed him, everything I needed for my paper. And then he said the magical words, would you like to see the studio? It's like, oh, I'd never been to an animation studio before, right? So yeah, I want to see this. So he tours me around. We're walking all the way through, and we come up to this one hallway that looks across this really deep room, and I see this big construction at the end, this big thing that had been made, and I said, "Hey, that's a cool rotoscoping machine," and I'm probably 40 feet away from it. And he looks at me quizzically and he goes, "How do you know what that is?" What else would it be? You've got your animation disc there, and lights up above, and you've got a reel-to-reel projector down below pointing up at it. I said, so of course you're projecting frame by frame and drawing over it. What else would it be? He said, I had that custom made. It's the only one in existence. And you
Wow.
took one glance and knew what it was? Well, yeah, sure. And he offered me a job. So while I was in college, simply because I was doing an English paper, because I took it seriously to help myself, I got my first job offer in animation. I didn't accept it because I didn't want to move to Dallas and I wanted to finish school, but I could have had it right then and there. Um, so I told my boys that when they were in college, that same story, because I wanted them to take advantage. How can you take everything you're asked to do and make it benefit you? And that attitude will take you really, really far.
I'm loving that. And it's like every time it's like, I'm glad you're saying so many things that can help our audience slash me. It's like
The audience of one.
the
Yeah.
audience of one. Like, like I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. I did not create a summit just to ask people the questions that I want answers to.
Yeah, you did. That's exactly what you did. You know it. But that's what makes it great.
Awesome. So speaking of, and you mentioned
Yes.
this earlier, so animation, you're self-taught in animation?
I am self-taught. I never took any classes because they weren't offered back in the 80s, except for Cal Arts, and I didn't go to Cal Arts. Um, and there's positives and minuses. If you're a go-getter, self-starter, being self-taught is great. With the exception, which really screwed me up, unfortunately, I understand how dope sheets work, but dope sheets and in framing for animation, especially 2D animation, there's a number of specifics on fields and how fields move that I was not taught. You know, I just looked at it, figured it out, and what I was doing worked for me, not necessarily how people in the industry norms I didn't know. So
Right.
what happened? So I was self-taught. I built a portfolio of things when I was in college. And then I thought Hollywood sounds cool. And I was living in Hollywood 2 weeks after graduation. I just up and moved. And I rented a place in the valley, and less than a block away from my apartment complex was Filmation.
Oh wow.
And Filmation was a huge animation studio back in the day. They were doing things like He-Man was what they were mostly known for, but a tremendous amount of Saturday morning cartoons. And He-Man was still in production back then, the original He-Man. And so I just walked over and I just walked in the front door, introduced myself, said I was an animator. Again, being self-taught and not knowing anyone in the industry. I didn't know that you should work your way up because I've never worked my way up in anything. I was just kind of start at the top. Um, but there are reasons on certain things why you work your way up, like as an animator. I didn't know that. So they just took me at my word and I showed them a couple things. He said, yeah, obviously you can animate. Let's give you a test. Would you be willing to take a test? I went, sure, I'll take a test, but I don't have, I literally had just gotten in. I hadn't moved all my stuff yet. So I didn't have my disc with me. And they said, that's all right. We'll loan you one. And they just handed me a disc. They didn't know me. They didn't take any of my info. They just said, yeah, we trust you. Go ahead. And handed me a disc. I was like, oh my God, is everyone in Hollywood this cool? This is really nice. So they gave me some storyboards and a couple keyframes and said, all right, here's what the sequence is. He-Man is chasing someone or running across the floor. And he stops and he slides into an elevator. Elevator doors close. That's the end of the shot. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. So I animated. I was very happy with it. Wrote up the dope sheet and the field moves and everything, and brought it in. Returned the disc to them. They were still shooting everything on film at the time. There was really wasn't even video capture. So they said, "All right, it'll take a few days. Our film, our camera department needs to take it and shoot it." So they shot it, and then they called me up a few days later and said, "Well, sorry, it really won't work out. Thanks for coming in." I said, well, what happened? They said, well, he was supposed to stop and slide into the elevator, but your guy just kept running and ran through the back of the elevator. Because I was self-taught, my numbering and field movement and all that kind of stuff didn't match up to the industry norm. So that's where having some sort of actual training, again, not necessarily education, but some sort of training would have taught me the industry standards on how my work would work with everyone else. So I failed on that and didn't get the job. And I actually ended up working in live action for a number of years. I had a big construction background, so um, I was doing that, and then got into doing stop motion animation and four screen projection, rear screen projection, a lot of visual effects things I was designing, and I was art directing things before I got back into animation. So. Um, which I did, and I go back and forth, and I've done a lot of stuff over the years. So, um, but yeah, so I learned a lot, but not necessarily some of the things I needed to. So sometimes you learn more from failure.
I definitely hear you on that. I think my disadvantage, and I learned years later. It's again one of those almost traditional things. Every animator knows the bouncing ball exercise.
Sure.
I was taught that, and I was taught actually on an Amiga, an old Amiga computer, and like we were like, yeah, we got the bouncing ball exercise. So I made mine a water balloon, and it came down and it hit the ground and it burst, and water goes everywhere. And the class loved it. The teacher loved it. Like, yeah, man, they're sharing with us. I said, yeah, man, it's cool. And I learned after I graduated college, after I'd started teaching college, and once I started really getting into teaching animation, I understood that that was an error because you have to learn squash and stretch on the
Yeah,
bounce.
you weren't learning all what the purpose of the bouncing ball.
Yes. And I
Yeah,
was like, and I'm going like, oh, it's like one of those, it looked cool. It failed. it's like,
well, but then maybe you were meant to get into doing visual effects animation.
ah,
You know,
that's
those
an
types of things. How a splash? That's incredibly difficult to animate, especially to make it look really cool. So
yeah, loving that. So, speaking of Amigas and digital animation, did you teach
mhm.
yourself like the animation software or any software at all, or did you?
Yeah, I did. In fact, I've got two different stories I'll share with you on that. Back in the really early days, in the early 90s of computer generated imagery, long before Photoshop reared its beautiful head, um, there was a guy. I was working at Universal Studios in Orlando. I was one of the original two art directors at Nickelodeon, and the other guy and I designed all the live action shows for Nick. And on the same lot was a building called 22A that officed production offices for independent productions. And one of the guys there, who I had met at some party, I didn't really know him that well, but we had met a couple times, had uh, I had heard that he had bought a computer system for doing computer painting in 3D animation. And this, like I said, super early days in the industry. No one else had anything like that. I mean, I was the first designer at Nickelodeon to use a computer
Oh
at
wow.
all, even for just for doing CAD work. Um, so so I've always been excited about new technology, and I wanted to check out this guy's system. So after work one day, I went over to his office and knocked on the door, and he was still there. And and I said, "Hey, I heard you've got this great computer system. I'd love to check it out, see what you've got." And people love showing off the things that they purchased. Said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." He hops up and he takes me into this big room, that probably had 10 desks in it, five up one wall, five up the other. And they had this huge computer system. These are the days, there's no such thing as a laptop.
Right.
There weren't desktops. There were things the size of desks that were computers. And so he brings it over and he kind of showing off different things. And he showed me there was a demo reel that came with the software to show what you could do, none of which he had done or was made on that system. But here's all the things that are possible. I don't remember what the 3D software was, because it was, it predated anything we're using now. But the digital paint software was called Rio. Um, it was a pixel by pixel paint system, not much different than Windows Paint,
Oh
right?
wow. Okay.
Which was unbelievable at the time. And so I'm freaking out, thinking this stuff is too cool. And I said, "So who's working on all this stuff? Is there anyone else here during the day?" He goes, "No." He said, "I just got the system. I don't have anyone using it." He said, "I'm going to try to learn some of it myself, but I want to have it. And the goal is to, build up a group of people." And I said, "Well, I'd love to learn it." I said, "Would you mind if I came after work during the week?" And he gave me a key to the office. And every day after work, I would go and I cracked open the books and I taught myself both the 3D software and Rio. Um, it- and there's an art to knowing how to read technical manuals. But I've always kind of been geeky that way. I mean, I still read scientific white papers just because I'm interested in different things. Um, so I kept building up stuff, and he would check in every few days. "Hey, how's it going? Hey, let me show you what I did." You know, so I got proficient, not great, but I got proficient at it. And in the meantime, he was still producing other things, and he landed a job producing a reality show called Firefighters for NBC. It's kind of like Cops. It was all reality based, following firefighters around. And it might have been called Files of the ATF or Firefighter. I honestly don't remember what the title was. This is early 90s. And part of it, there needed to be a 3D logo, and they wanted to digitally reproduce and create ATF wanted posters for the show. And because I was the only person who knew how to use the system, he hired me to do it. So my first CG and digital paint work was for an NBC primetime series called Firefighters, because I was there and had taught myself, and they knew me. So, getting out of your comfort zone and asking for what you want can lead to things if you open yourself for opportunities. So that's how I learned that kind of stuff. Then over the years, other things would come up, and I'm not a CG animator by any stretch. I know enough about it where I can help guide animators into what I want. I can talk about it with people. Um, that's not where my intentions lie. That doesn't mean I don't want to at least understand it. Now with 2D animation, once once Digital ink and paint started happening. Disney had developed their CAP system at the time. Um, Toon Boom had not purchased, I think it was Animo, one of those big animation softwares that they purchased and turned into
US
Harmony.
Animation or something, I think.
Yeah, it was one of those. Before all of that, there was, well, I guess that might have been around, but AXA was the independent animation that was inexpensive to get into at the time. And I saw this and I thought, well, I still want to get back into animation, but I didn't want to work with cells. It takes up too much room. It takes way too much time. But digital, so I invested in buying the software, the AXA software, which is a Korean-based software, but there was a U.S. distributor. I don't remember the guy's name anymore. So I called him up, got to know him, bought the software, bought myself an oversized scanner, and got everything I needed to do it. And it's just started building a portfolio, practicing and playing different styles of animation and learning the digital ink and paint. And even got to the point where I was brought out to SIGGRAPH and I did the demos of AXA at SIGGRAPH one year. Um, and through that, I built a full portfolio of different styles, which I always find it's important to have more than one style of anything in art that you're showing to show breadth of abilities. Because someone looking for one really tight style, very narrow, hard to find work. But if you show that you could do a bunch of things, no matter what they have, they think, oh, he could probably do it. So once I had built a number of things, I felt confident with the software. I I had read in one of the trades. Another thing I do, I read the industry trades. Variety, Hollywood Reporter, whatever, AXA or not AXA, AWN, Animation Magazine, whatnot, Kidscreen. And I had read that in one of the business papers, there was a CG studio moving into backlotted Disney MGM Studios, what it was called at the time. Now it's called Disney Hollywood Studios. It was Disney MGM at the time in Orlando. And I thought, you know what? I'll bet they're going to need some 2D animation there. And there's nothing in this article about them doing 2D. It's only doing 3D. And the animators that are on site only do Disney stuff. They're kind of under contract just to do Disney stuff. So I
Right.
thought, well, I want to meet this guy. So I I knew he was on the back lot, and it's under lock and key. You can't get in without, being invited, and I didn't know who this guy was. And this is probably 1998, 99. It was right before the Disney Cruise Line premiered. I remember that. So I called a buddy of mine who was an animator at Disney, uh, and their big offices were there on the same back lot. And I said, "Hey, get me a pass as if I'm coming to see you for lunch." He goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, I want to get on the back lot. I'm looking for somebody." He goes, "Okay." So he calls in for me to meet with him just so I could get on the back lot. So I drive in. I've got a portfolio and probably CD or DVD or something of samples of my work. And I just start walking into all the bungalows trying to find the studio. No one had heard of them because they had just moved in. I walk over to the post house. It was called Disney Post at the time. And I asked if they knew anything about this guy. And they said, "Oh, yeah, their office here in our back offices." Now, I'm in a lobby that's locked off. There's no way to get back beyond it. I said, well, would you mind giving a call to the owner? His name is Mark. I don't remember his last name anymore. Um, and so she called him and he comes up, and this is right before lunch. And he just cracks the door open. He leans in and goes, "Yes." I was, "Hey, look, I'm not looking for work. I am a 2D animator. I know at some point you're going to need to produce 2D animation. I just wanted to meet you. So anytime you have need for work, I want you to know that you have a source. You have a couple of minutes, I'd love to show you my samples." Right. So I got right to the point immediately. Looks at his watch. He goes, "You know what? Sure. I got a couple of minutes." He opens the door. We go back. I show him my stuff. He starts getting excited. "Yeah, this is cool. Really fun stuff." And then he said, "You want to see what we're doing?" I went, "Hell yeah, I do." So he starts showing me. So they were doing this big commercial for the Disney Cruise Line where they built the Disney Magic, which was their first cruise boat. they built the entire thing, all the little itty bitty lights all around it, right, and the moonlit sky and all the water, and he was telling me, so this is going to be not only used in a commercial, he goes, but they're going to have a theatrical stage play going on the main stage, and part of the finale on this 40-foot tall screen is going to be Tinkerbell flying in, touches the bow of a regular boat, magically transforms it into the Disney magic as the pixie dust travels down it, and then she flies up and away. That sounds cool. How are you doing Tink? He goes, well, we're thinking about doing CG. I went, all right. I don't think that's going to look very good, especially, this is early days in CG. I said, people really know Tink the way she was drawn, in Peter Pan. He goes, yeah, we've been kind of vacillating back and forth. You think you could animate Tinkerbell? I went, sure, I could. Now, did I know I could? No, but I'm not going to, the way you get jobs is by saying yes. And in my case, in finding someone better than me to actually do the animation. So I actually walked out of that first meeting with a $60,000 contract just to do the pencil animation. We didn't have to do ink and paint or anything. We just need to do the pencil animation for this one little sequence of Tink flying in. It was back in like I said, like 92, or maybe it was later 90s. I actually, that must have been later 90s, 98, 99, something like that. And that launched my animation studio. I found a local animator in Orlando who could really do a beautiful Tinkerbell. In fact, it was funny because when we got it, I said, I really want to use the Mark Davis design and not the TV animation of Tink. I love the Mark Davis original feature design. And the people at Disney couldn't get us the turnarounds of Tink. So I went walking through the back lot at Disney, and, or I guess downtown Disney, whatever it was called at the time. And they have a store of cells and Disney art. And one of the things they had there was this big print of Mark Davis Tinkerbell designs. And so I asked to speak to the manager. Manager came out, and I said, look, I'm animating Tinkerbell for the Disney Cruise Line. They can't find and access this artwork, but you have it. Can I take pictures of this or scans of it or something so we can use this to animate with? And they pulled it out of the frame and handed me the print. Said, sure, go ahead and just take this and copy it, bring it back to us. So I did. And we used that to do the animation. And sure enough, our animation ended up being used in the commercials to launch the hugely successful Disney Cruise Line. And it premiered on the big screen as the finale on the Disney stage on the cruise line. And then now I had Disney as a credit, and at launch my first studio, ARG Animation.
That is, it's like, what is it? How's it? How do I, and I normally get this with your stories. How do I hate and love you at the same time? Incredibly inspirational, sir.
Well, a lot of it's just, if you know what you want, you go and you ask for it. Far too many people are not willing to ask for what they want. So, I walk into places and I speak to the owner. As I like to tell a lot of people, and I probably said this with you before, I don't want to talk to someone who can tell me no. I only want to talk to the person who can tell me yes. Underlings can say no, or the next person.
Right.
I want to go to the one person who can say yes, because then I don't have to go through 4 yeses to get a yes. I only need 1 yes. Too many chances of getting a no in the meantime. I only care about the person who makes the final decision. So whenever possible, I go to the main person.
I've been blessed and fortunate. Shout out to our very generous and awesome sponsors, both at Wacom and Toon Boom.
Mm-hmm.
My initial reaching out to Toon Boom when I saw their software, like I want to think of it's either called Digital Pro or it might have been called Animate Pro at the time. Maybe it was Digital Pro.
Animate Pro.
Yeah. So reaching out to them, going like, "Oh my God, this is incredible," and expecting one of their salespeople or one of their underlings to get to me, and it's like the VP of marketing contacted me. I'm like, oh, hello. I was like, this is, and that's the relationship there. And then with Wacom years later, again, it's kind of like I'm not talking to anyone on the lower decks. Awesome animated show, by the way. Not talking to anyone in the lower decks. Is talking to uh, Melissa. Hey, how are you? Thank you again. so, um, but yeah, it's just that really cool thing of, and what I've been trying to get my students and my former students to understand, and teaching this to my kid, you always have to ask. I said you have to approach it with, "What's the worst they can tell you?" No, just ask.
Yeah. Yep.
All
I've
right,
used those exact words with my kids.
excellent. Dude, I am digging. Okay, are those? I know you normally your wardrobe is remarkable. Are those Mondrian pants in the background there, dude?
Yes, they are. I've actually a couple pair of these, but these are very special Mondrian pants. I was wearing those at an event called the Rubin Weekend, which is hosted by the National Cartoonist Society, which I'm a member of. And those are my original childhood heroes, the people who draw comic strips for the newspapers. So I was wearing them one day at this event, and one of the wives, in particular, uh, Melinda Keene, the wife of Jeff Keene, little Jeffy from Family Circus.
Okay.
Well, little Jeffy's like 6'4", um, and he's Glenn Keane's brother. Glenn Keane, the amazing animator from Disney,
Oh wow.
and Bill Keane, their father, created Family Circus. So Melinda, Jeff's wife, looked at that. She goes, those look like cartoon panels. You ought to have the guys draw on those pants. And I went, I love that idea. So I went up to Jeff. I said, you have to do this first because your wife came up with the idea.
Oh
I
wow.
want you to draw Family Circus on my pants. So he drew on them, and I took them off first. I
I,
was wearing
I,
other pants at the
I'm not
time.
implying anything.
And so it just became a thing. So for years, I've been carrying it to different events. And so I've got now 52 of the world's top cartoonists drew their characters all over those pants. I mean, I've got Garfield and Beetle Bailey guys, and a bunch of the guys from Mad Magazine, and Doonesbury Gary Trudeau drew on them. Kathy Geiswhite drew Kathy. I mean, it's on and on and on. All the greats have drawn on my pants. So I have them on display here in my studio.
Sweet.
Yeah. So very excited about that.
All right. I got a question for you.
Okay.
Uh, Tell me, in your opinion, what book should every animator, or whether it's young animator, seasoned animator, what book should every animator have on their shelf?
You're a cruel, cruel man. I have a lot of bookshelves full of a lot of books, and you want me to narrow it to one. I'll tell you, I'll narrow
Okay.
it to two. I'll narrow it to two. First one, shameless self-promotion. Start
Ah,
at the top. So this is one of my, actually, a couple of stories that I shared with you are in this. This is a lot of both my successes and failures of jumping right to the top of something. Just like, I launched an animation studio with Disney, my first professional animation. I kind of considered that starting at the top. But there's a lot of stories in there on how I beat the odds and how it can be replicated and what I learned from each thing. So anyway, so start at the top. It's on Amazon, both digital and print. So this is one because there's a lot of great things in there, hopefully, that can inspire you, as I say to people, to get you off your ass. As far as drawing with animation, specific animator survival kit. I literally became a better animator by reading the book. The
yeah.
the things, the way he approaches it, the it's, it's everything. It's literally everything about animating motion in ways I hadn't thought of before. That just absolutely blew my mind. I love this book. Love it, love it, love it. So, and there's different versions of it now. There's digital versions of it where it breaks down even more. This is the original one that first came out,
Right.
and it's just incredible. Everyone should have it.
I've got I know they did the thing where they actually broke it down into little workbooks, almost like, hey, here's a section on walks, here's a section on runs. Um
Yeah.
yeah, that's we were talking before about the idea when you talk about when he teaches breaking the joint, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh crap. It's like
Oh yeah,
everything's
breaking the
so much
joint, the
better now.
walk cycles, and the elbow that comes forward instead of back before it goes back. And you think, well, that sounds weird until you see how what he's showing. It's like, oh my god, that's amazing,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's an incredible book, by far the best in teaching the mechanics of drawing animation that I had ever seen.
Yes. Uh, like rest in peace, Master Jedi Richard
Oh
Williams.
yeah, Richard Williams,
Eh,
who directed the animation for Roger Rabbit, among other things. For those of you who don't know who he is, because Roger Rabbit was groundbreaking in so many ways, both in the 2D standalone animation, the shorts that are in it, Roller Coaster Rabbit, just insane, and then of course the mix of 2D animation with live action, which is the best ever done.
Definitely. Okay. I think that's almost a wrap. I do have a question because I
Okay.
know it is, but I'm also curious as to if you can actually talk about when it's going to be public. What's up with the red X behind you?
Red X. That I was lucky enough to be a TEDx speaker just a couple weeks ago. Um, and I don't know when it's going to come out yet. They actually don't tell you. Once it gets edited by TEDx, they sent upload everything to TED, and then the TED people decide when and where each video gets uploaded and if they'll upload it. So right now, it's a waiting game. I'm just waiting to see. I will let you, and I will scream it to the universe once it comes out. I can't wait for everyone to see it. I'm very proud of my talk and how it came out. It was scary because I've never given a talk. I speak publicly a lot. TED Talks are different. The way it has to be memorized and the way you present it. So it was a stretch for me. It's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. I wanted the challenge. Um, but once I got there, I just kind of went. I disappeared within myself, and then all of a sudden it was over, and it just went perfectly.
No, it's
Um,
website. It's like it's we're discussing whether or not to curse. And shout out to Lamont Russ because I'm going to borrow this phrase from like
I love him.
you're worried. It's like, dude, do you know who the fuck you are? You're motherfucking Mark Simon, dude. You got this. So it's like yeah,
But it was scary. I mean, I worked harder on putting that together, both on how I wrote it, because I wanted to be very poetic on the way it flowed. So it's a completely different talk than I usually give, and like I said, I'm super proud of it. But I've never worked so hard in my life on memorizing something and putting it together, so that it was as perfect as I could make it. And I was so pumped. I was nervous as hell coming up to it, but once I stepped on, in fact, I didn't step on the stage. I ran onto the stage. Um, you know me and my energy. I literally ran. It's like, let's go. It was an absolute blast. The audience was really into it, so I got a little back and forth with some audience members during it. I even had a phrase that I had developed specifically for it that I got everyone in the audience to say with me at the very end. It was really gratifying. I mean, it was.
I'm
Uh,
curious though.
yeah, so I can't
Speaking of
wait to share it with everyone.
someone who code switches as a daily practice of survival, as well as does some neurolinguistic programming. I think that's how Tasia Valenza worded it. But I do that a lot when I'm teaching and training.
Yeah.
Did you have a TEDx voice? Is it anything similar to your voice currently?
It's my voice. I can't speak any differently than I do now. I did have a coach because Ted, like I said, TED Talks are really different. So they actually coach you through and help you, and he was fantastic. So so that was helpful. And I had some TED coaching before. I had been brought on for one in Orlando a number of years ago, but the owners lost their TED license that year, so I never got a chance to actually perform it. But I had at least had some initial training, so I kind of came into it. First, being a professional public speaker was helpful, and having the early training helped. But I spent months putting this one talk together, um, and it was really gratifying. To it was a goal, so it was another tick, and I was able to mark off the list.
Awesome, awesome, and more awesome. You keep doing all the cool things. It's like, dude, I'm gonna be you when I grow up. Loving it, sir. All right. So we're gonna wrap things up. And again, I thank you so much for your time. And it's been a pleasure as always, where I get to geek out with one of my good friends here.
Loved it. Always a fun time.
Excellent, sir. All right. This has been Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, hanging out with my friend, comrade, and mentor, Mr. Mark Simon. Say bye, Mark.
Bye, Mark. See you, everybody. Thanks for showing.
Got it.
Hey, this is Tony Ross for the 2D Animation Virtual Summit, and hanging out with there's a few people on the summit that have been here from the very beginning. My friend, my colleague, Joanna Davidovich, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing exceptionally well. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you, and I am so in envy of your studio.
Oh, thank you. It's got the lighting.
Well, there's that. In almost anyone else with a studio like this, that's like they're sitting on a green screen and it's just a photo. But it's like, no, yours is. I was like, I want that. That's really nice.
Well, all you have to do is get a place with a basement and have it flood, and then you get to redo it.
Oh wow. I had no idea that was the
There's
behind.
costs and benefits to everything in life.
I see. Well, for our viewers who have no idea who you are, could you tell us who you are and why you're here?
Oh, starting out with a very difficult question. How do I sum up who I am in one sentence? I'm an animation artist who's been working in and around the industry, doing commercials, promos, bumpers, series work for, I should know how many years I've been doing this. Let's just say since 2014. Please forgive me, I can't do math. It's creeping up on 20 years, though. I betcha. Um, I started out as a lowly intern at a wonderful studio that did a lot of great broadcast design work, and I cut my teeth on doing character designs, animation on paper. I think it was probably the last opportunity anybody ever had to work on paper. And I'm so grateful for that because it helped me become an animation Swiss Army knife. And I sort of describe my career as making it not in the conquering way, but more in the survive kind of way. So I am an animation survivor. And what was the second question? That was who I am. What was the second part of it?
Why are you here?
Why am I here? You asked me to. That's simple. So I'm here.
Thank you, and not only you, but to all of our panelists who volunteered their time out of their crazy busy schedules. Thank you so much. I only recently became very much aware of how much of a gift that was when I invited someone and they said, "Well, you're gonna have to pay me for this interview." And I'm like, "But I really want you in the interview." One day I'll get grants and be able to afford to do that. I can't right now. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those, oh man. Anyway, so thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. Especially we Georgia people got to stick together.
I do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, I think whenever this is, I haven't actually figured out the schedule and when this is going to pop up during the summit. But since this is the 5th year, we'll be doing that hopefully doing a little gathering, get together locally for all the Georgia people and anyone who wants to travel in. Shout out to Toon Boom family. Yeah, just jump on a plane.
Oh, we got our Toon Boom rep to come over and help us out when we offered a bottle of scotch. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotta remember that.
He actually didn't know about the scotch. That was just like how we thanked him for his time. at the end of the grueling session of, oh yeah, by the way, that doesn't work. We're like, well, let's just drink our sorrows away.
That is too awesome. Now, was that in the before time, before COVID, or after?
Oh, the before times.
Okay. Coolness. So, one, I was admiring your T-shirt. Always, I love the little works you keep doing.
Oh, you saw my T-shirt?
Yes, I did.
Sorry.
Very, very nice.
I wear it all the time. It's super comfy. I started buying my own stuff. I'm using my own supply now.
I think I don't do that enough because I'm normally wearing things that are really cool, and being a extra sized, a larger sized human, I have to buy larger things. And I'm like, but I like wearing funny shirts. I'm going, why am I not just ordering the shirt that I want with my designs in the size that I want? And I've yet to do that. So
do it.
Hats off to you.
Then people stop you in the street and like, that's such a cool shirt. And then you get to say, hey, guess where it came from?
You should go here and get that. I have no idea who actually made it.
I keep meaning to get like little cards that say like, if you like this shirt, because my
Yes.
TeePublic name is just ridiculous. No one's ever going to remember it. So I need to make little cards.
Laren DeJarnett and I were just talking about, one, memorable names, and two, we're talking about it. And I actually looked this information up and I forgot it already. But we were talking about business cards, but there's now the smart business card or whatever that you can just tap into people's phones and it gives them all the information. Note to self, I'm going to pop up the same information I had to pop up in Laren's links because I had to look it up and found out what it's called. But there are these little metal cards, and they're so freaky that, like, and when people go like, hey, do you have your information? And it taps to them and it just updates all the information or somehow. And I'm like,
oh, that's cool. I have to make a note of that.
Oh yeah.
It'd be cool if they'd be like, oh, where'd you get that shirt? And I'd be like, zap onto your phone. It's there.
I'm like, that is beyond awesome, because right now I think about the things that I do know how to do, whether it's training or consulting. And if someone stopped me right now, not only do I not have the fancy business card, I don't even have the old business card. So it's like,
yeah, it's been a while since I've updated my business. It's been a while since I've needed them because I haven't gone to conventions in so long.
Right.
But it'll happen. I've got my oldest daughter is getting interested in the business. And so I think eventually we're going to be a family business.
I like.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for you that I'm going to throw. And I don't know if I've actually sent this to you.
Oh no, a curveball. Let's see.
Curveball. Love curveballs. Every animator, whether beginning or seasoned or even thinking about it, should have this book on their shelf. What is that book and why?
Can I go look at my bookshelf?
Yes, you may.
I don't know. Well, there's the obvious Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. There's Cartoon Animation by Preston Blair. There's Illusion of Life by Ollie Johnson and Frank. God, I keep wanting to see Frank Lloyd Wright. What's his name?
Is it Frank Thomas?
Yes, Frank Thomas. I'm sorry. Yes, he did not invent the airplane.
Frank and Ollie.
Right. Frank and Ollie. And I just mismatched again, and everyone's going to think I'm ridiculous. I don't think Frank Lloyd Wright invented airplanes. That was Orville and Wilbur. Frank Lloyd Wright was an architect. There. Now I have gotten all my references clear. Now back to the question at hand. If you can get your hands on them, the Glenn Vilppu figure drawing manuals are so good. I had a rare opportunity, not being a California person, a very rare opportunity to take some workshops with him because at my college, there was a figure drawing club, and the president of that like moved heaven and earth to get Glenn Vilppu to come and do a few classes with us. And it was the first time, it was my senior year. And I remember being so mad because I was sitting in his classes, finally things clicking in my brain. And I'm finally enjoying life drawing and finally getting it for the first time. And ever. And I'm just so mad that it was the first time that I didn't have this, like going into college. It's like I could have such a badass portfolio by now. I could be so good by why did they not teach me this before? And he was such a dear man, and very hard of hearing. He had the cochlear implant, I forget which ear.
Okay.
And also his wife was there to help explain things as well. But I still remember like how clearly, like even encumbered by all of these things, he could communicate so clearly what was important about life drawing and how to approach it. Is for the very first time he had said, don't draw what you see. Use what you see to create a catalog in your brain. The figure is there just to suggest something to you, but you are drawing from your brain every time. And once he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe that's not the ultimate answer of everything to everyone else, but that clicked for me. And it was a ton of things that he approached in that way that finally helped me understand everything that I was doing wrong. Or maybe not everything I was doing wrong, but enough to make me ashamed and do better. And I got as many of his drawing manuals. I saved all of my notes from his class. And anytime I feel like I need to step up my game, I always refresh with my Glenn Villepeu drawing manuals. And we were talking about cool, memorable names. Villepeu. My gosh, cool name. And I also just got it's just, I wasn't planning. This was not a planned question. So it's just literally sitting right by me. The Steven Silver character design roughs book that he just did a Kickstarter for. And it's just fantastic because I love Steven Silver to begin with. I think that he's an incredible draftsman, incredible artist, great imagination, but also does a lot to help artists market themselves and become professionals, not just better artists, but professional artists. And that book that he just published, and if you can still get a copy, I highly recommend it because it's all about he's opening up his brain into his thought process for designing characters. And it's fantastic. And it's all his original drawings. It's all his original notes, and they're all on paper, and he draws on like sticky notes on top of things when he wants to try a different idea. And a lot of his notes from at the time, and also notes that he did after the fact to help explain what he did and what he was thinking. Great book, great resource for anybody who's interested in character design and and in general, trying to understand design sensibilities, because I kind of feel like Steven Silver did such a good job in the industry that he's like, nobody wants Steven Silver anymore because he's so recognizable, but he's just the best. He's just the best at designing clear, broad, and appealing characters. They're all so good. And when I looked through this book, I'm like, oh, it's like, it makes so much sense. It kills me that I can't think of this stuff myself. But thankfully he wrote it all down so we can get the benefit of his experience and insight. Because a lot of great artists, what they do is intuitive. It comes out of years and years of study and practice and the doing and the doing and the doing. And they just know what works, but they can't articulate it properly or very well. But Steven Silver can put it to words, and the words are how it can get into my dumb brain. So I appreciate that immensely. As for other books, I don't know. I like really old drawing manuals. There's just something about them where it's like how to draw a horse in 3 easy steps. First, draw a circle. 2, draw an eye. 3, you're done. It's like this perfect rendering of a horse after like ridiculous short amount of steps. I like stuff like that. I like the Jack Ham books. I love everything that he's done. And even though he's not a book, I like following Kyle Webster. He's the guy who made Photoshop usable by making all these great brushes, but he also does great tutorials. Now we're getting out of books and into the realm of online resources. Yeah, and to mention Steven Silver again, there's always Schoolism. There's I don't know if he still does Schoolism. I think he's just the Silver Drawing Academy now.
Yes.
But also is that Aaron Blaze, Tony White. There's just so many. Like there's so many books, but what I find even better is having the teacher right there and being interactive as well, which is what a lot of these online courses allow. And I know I kind of segued on my own there into online resources and not just books, but I think that was a very thorough answer of your question, and I'm going to leave it there, period.
This is why I keep you around. Yes. It was like,
you can't shut me up.
well, no, it's like, yes, there's this, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. And one of the other things that what I absolutely love about Steven Silver, he's joined us in the past. I am fingers crossed, maybe this time. I don't know. I know he's doing a lot of stuff. But one of the other things I really love that I see him posting, especially on LinkedIn, it's not just the art part of it, but it's kind of like the mental struggle that
like he pulls up he does the sign messages.
Yes. And it's like it's kind of that little get out of your own head. He's like, and he's kind of like the little angel on your shoulder, the character angel on your shoulder going, hey, I saw you worrying about this thing. Stop it. You got to do this. And it's like, love him.
No, I owe a great deal to him. I really do. I met him at I can't remember what year it was. It was back at the Toronto Animation Arts Film Festival, TAFFE. I don't know what it stands for, but okay. Toronto and animation are in there somewhere. And I got to have a nice long conversation with him, and he helped me a lot. Just mentally shift my priorities, and not just about animation, but about important life things as well. So I think, he just seems like one of those all-time good guys.
Yeah, it's beyond definitely a treasure. Also, shout out to my friend and colleague who is on the summit, Mr. Tony White, and talking about resources. We're in the process of the app is technically in beta right now, but Drawtastic having a animation education app that's like old school, new school, like past, present, and future information about 2D animation. So
future.
Ooh. Yeah, it's like because as much as we hate the current naughty word that's on everyone's lips, and like AI. Okay, well, what about it? What happens there? Is it going to be like flash in the pan real quick, or what?
You can. I don't think it's a flash in the pan. You can either fight the current or you can use it. Like, how long have I kept my paper around? And I'm not fighting against new technology, but I'm trying to use the new technology to do what I love better and more efficiently. And I think that's what AI is about. Like it just means like we've got more competition. Like we have to be better than an algorithm, which like sounds easy, but anyone who's battled the YouTube algorithm knows what a challenge that can be.
Yeah.
So I guess just it's good to find people who are exploring ways to have AI benefit, especially independent content creators. That's where my eye is, because I know that it'll be abused by big studios just like every new technology is. Like CG came along and they said, look, it's a cheaper way to do animation. Do you remember when they said it was going to be cheaper than 2D?
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't last.
How about that?
Yeah. And then they just beat the technology into just do our bidding, be homogenous, be distracting, and it's just and now animated movies are not the blockbuster they used to be, pretty consistent money makers, and now CG just they put everything into it, all the eggs into that basket. And now it's like, oh, the movies don't make money anymore. Whoopsie. And it's like they misused the technology. They thought they could squeeze like all the golden eggs out of the goose at once, and forgot what was important. And AI could be the exact same thing, where everyone jumps on this bandwagon and there's like an AI bubble. But I think at the end of the day, any leap in technology is going to benefit independent producers in the long run, because it makes everything more accessible. It makes it blows open the gates. There's no gatekeepers anymore, because everyone has access to this incredible technology. Like, look at the stuff like teenagers make in Blender.
Yeah.
And it knocks the pants off of Hollywood. Like, it's incredible. Like, just a 17-year-old in between, classes in high school can make something that gets like 1,000,000,000,000 more views than what Hollywood makes. Like, even just 10 years ago, that would have been unthinkable.
Right.
So I kind of like, everyone's scared of AI right now, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, technology always seems to benefit the little guy in the long run. It seems to me, but I could be wrong. Maybe I should be scared. Should I be scared?
I don't think so. I remember, and this is here's the thing I remember. I remember one learning Photoshop before it had layers, and we learned all these different techniques and everything, and we learned these different methods of how do you go in and remove the red eye from a photo. And then when another version of Photoshop came out, and it was like, here's the red eye tool. What? No, you don't call it that. You're trying to take our jobs. And I remember being really upset about that. Quit making, what was it? My younger, more arrogant self. Quit making Photoshop safe for secretaries. This is our job here. What are you doing?
Well, yeah,
and so
knowledge is power.
I look at that now, and it's like, everyone's talking about AI, and I'm going, yeah, but Adobe's been messing with AI for years now. When they started doing content, when they said content aware, or the fact that you can actually, even like programs like InDesign, you have a frame there and you bring in this giant photo and it says frame aware. So it doesn't just drop the person dead center. It actually places that photo in a decent composition. Damn, that is actually pretty good. It's like, or either where you had to go in and do the clone stamp for months and months and months, or doing any type of photo repair. Like I saw recently where all the stuff that I normally teach a class, they're like, yeah, all the dust and scratches that are in that photo, just tell AI to fill in it. It's like, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, I think it's the whole idea of using things, use it as a tool.
Yeah.
And like everything else, there are going to be people who are going to try to use it as a way of life. And you'll see that where that difference is.
Well, yeah, it's another, like, but back in the day, in your younger self, would you have been happy spending your life removing red eye? Or now you had that grunt work taken care of by a robot for you, and now you can move on to better things.
True. There's what is it? There's AI, but there's also these really cool automations which I don't use enough of. So the fact that it says, if I post, because we as an artist and animators, I hear this all the time. Like, I'm not only going to be an artist and a project manager, but now I've got to be a social media manager. And I was just recently studying this thing of like, yes, here, set up this particular thing. So when you post something on YouTube, it automatically does a tweet here, and it also automatically posts over here. I'm like, wait, how do I do this again? So it's like how do we get back to like not spend so much time on this so we can actually do work? So I kind of get it. In the same way, there was a gentleman talking, and it was the most awesome thing I ever saw. There's a really cool program. I want to call it, is it Splice or I can't remember what it, but damn it. But what was cool was Spine, excuse me. Yes, it is called Spine. SP. I was like, I know it's not Splice. It's like one of those SP words, Spine. And there's one of these animators that I follow and the work looks incredible. It's really beautiful, beautiful 2D animation. And he posted on LinkedIn, it's like, spine is just a tool. It doesn't solve everything for you. If I see one more crappy bit of animation showing up, I'm thinking like, thank you. Because it's like there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and I admire it and I hate it at the same time.
Mhm.
Where it's there's a lot of black and white stick figure stuff that's going on. It's not even really animated. Maybe there's lip sync, but you look and go, oh, by the way, they have 2.5 million fans or whatever. I'm like,
You mean like the story time videos?
not even story time videos. I think there's I can't, I don't want to call off a name. Because it's not, I don't, again, I'm loving it again, loving and hating it. I think it's still better than that annoying piece of fruit that came out a while ago. Um, but yeah, it's just the idea of not getting too involved in doing really heavy lifting as far as individuals doing animations. I think, where am I going with this? I think that what AI is going to help those who are true animators and artists, and not just the people who are just going, hey, I can actually write out something. Uh, the true animators and artists, I think it can help them do bigger and faster productions, maybe.
Sure.
Eventually, there's still there's some telltale signs about it. It's the same way when Flash animation first came out, it had a certain look to it. Everything AI, as far as the illustrations, looks like it was done. It looks like you'll appreciate this. A lot of AI art looks like Max Headroom made it. It's like, so yeah, that it's kind of one of those things of, why does it have
Yeah.
that certain look? It's that very plasticky, old school Photoshop look
Mhm.
that was in the early 90s. And it's like, I'm like, why does it look that way? So it'll be interesting to see what can happen. There's a couple of people who got in trouble ish. At least the internet was not happy about it. By going, hey, we made we took video and made an anime out of this, and it's going, can you not do that? So it'll be interesting to see where AI is in the next year or two.
Yeah. Might be spooky.
It might be.
Yeah.
There's all right, my last thing about AI. I think even when the movie AI came out, there was
I
they had set
forgot
up
about that.
software.
Yeah.
And I remember sharing this with my students, that you could write in questions and it would write back to you back then. So think about how far back that was. So when people talk about, oh, here's where we are in robots, or here's where we are in cloning and all this stuff, and I go, yeah, that's where you're making public of where you are. Because I'm thinking like, I don't think it's that. I think that there's a lot more going on currently.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's something super insidious going on. I'm like, sure, why not? We're going to be replaced by robots. Sure, I believe it.
There's a game my wife and daughter play where you build out theme parks, and you go,
Dino Park Tycoon?
is it Dino Park Tycoon?
No, that's the game I played when I was in elementary school.
Oh, never mind. I was like, I have no idea. But it was like this one in particular. It's like you're saying, oh, let me. Here's there are pickpockets going around here. All right, let me place security cameras here. Let me do this. Or I've got this particular thing. The wait line is this long. This is how much I'm going to charge. Okay, and then I was watching this, going, I wonder how many different parks have actually paid into this that they can get that information, because it makes sense, because you're having all these problem solvers for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting the way things go. All right, enough about that. Let me ask this question. What do you think is and I've asked this question before, but I'm curious as to where your brain is currently. What is the biggest misconception of people starting out in animation and saying, I want to be an animator? What do you think the biggest misconception is?
I think my answer is still the same. That they're going to be, that it's going to be the same as the era that they fell in love with, thinking that it's going to be like for me, I thought it was going to be like The Reluctant Dragon.
Mm.
I thought it was going to be like, oh, you go into a studio and everybody's wacky and playing practical jokes and everyone's interested in everybody else's ideas. And
Right.
then you have a great idea. And if you're just persistent and energetic and enthusiastic enough, someone's going to be like, give that kid a shot. And it's not like that. And it's so much more of a slog being a cog in a big machine, and nobody cares about your ideas, and they get angry when you tell your ideas insistently and enthusiastically. And but it's not personal. Like, it's not a reflection on you as a person or as an artist. It's just the way the system works. It kind of grinds people up and squeezes everything they can out of them. And a few people make it for sure, but it's still it's a grind. It's not glamorous work. Like, anytime I'm almost reluctant to tell new people what I do, and because they always like kind of light up because, like, wow, that sounds fun and cool. I'm like, oh, it isn't. Like, it's a lot of work and I'm tired and I don't want to do it anymore. I want to work on my own things. But it's not to say like it's terrible. It's just that, yes, you're getting paid to draw, but you're getting paid to draw what other people tell you to draw. And that's not quite the same as what made you fall in love with the medium in the first place. And so you really have to love the process a whole hell of a lot in order to survive that. And a lot of people become artists because it's a personal thing. It's like a safe, comfortable, squishy place where I can go into my imaginary worlds and my funny worlds and create whatever I want. And this is where I am happy. It's my happy place. And turns out I'm pretty good. Maybe people will pay me to do this, but they don't want that squishy, happy thing that is special to you. They want what they want. And sometimes that's, in line with what you like to do and what you think is good. And most of the time it isn't. And most of the time you're trying to please clients that you think are really wrong, but they don't want you to tell them that they're wrong. They want you to keep doing what they tell you to do. And that grinds you down after a while.
Right.
It's not to say that it's terrible and that every client is terrible. I've got clients that I absolutely adore to bits and pieces, but it's not what you think it is as a kid going into it to make the cartoons you always dreamed about. That has to be your own work that you do for your own pleasure or for your own investment in your future. Sorry, I just kicked my machine. That was not a Freudian slip at all. I love you, machine. You just have to be prepared that doing it as a profession is much different than doing it for pleasure. It's, like I said, I keep saying it's a grind and you feel it after a while. And it's not for everybody. It really isn't. And it's not to say that if it's not for you, it doesn't mean you're a bad artist. It doesn't mean you should stop drawing. It just means that it takes a certain kind of crazy to make it in this business. And maybe your kind of crazy is not the right kind of crazy to make it in the business. But that's okay, because we need all kinds of crazy. Crazy makes the world go round. So that's kind of, when I speak to students, that's what I gently and kindly try to prepare them for. And I think that's the main reason why I get asked to speak to students, because the teacher's like, they won't listen to me. You need to come in and tell them what it's like.
Yeah. I was talking about a gentleman that a young man, and I'm trying to call him a young man and not call him a kid.
A young adult.
Young adult, Mr. Charlie Fulks, who is one of our panelists. And I saw his work on LinkedIn. I'm like, holy crap, this looks incredible. I think they could probably, I think this is a style I want to do one of my projects in. yes, one, I want to interview you, but two, what are your rates? How much do you charge to do character design? And he gave me his rate, and I was just like, one, thank you, because that means I can actually afford it. Two, you were really undercharging. Are you crazy? And then I found out, oh, they're 19. And I'm like, holy crap, are you kidding me? It's like looking at their work, it's like, wait, are you copying this from someone? But it's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And I was joking about the fact that the industry hasn't made him jaded yet. So it's like we're trying to actually get him in and go, how do we protect you? Because you're incredible.
No, you can't be protected. You got to either I don't know. It's like I don't like the way things work. So I kind of my enthusiasm kind of took a nosedive after my 20s. But, still I'm not just like Eliza Doolittle, I'm not fit for anything else. You made an animator out of me.
Okay, that's my favorite musical. It's
Thank you for getting the reference.
Like, all we want is a room somewhere. I'm just saying.
Don't make me sing. Don't make me do it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, fortunately and unfortunately, it's just this really cool thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why, again, these kids, because these people are, I'm talking to our kids, are popping up with this incredible stuff. It's like, yeah, you haven't allowed the world to spoil your vision and your creativity yet.
Well, they still need to be told the truth, because otherwise it really crushes you. Like after, like, say this 19-year-old keeps undercharging and keeps doing endless revisions and, gets hired by a studio, gets the badge and is like, thumbs up, I made it in the industry, but never learns how to, what's the word? Not negotiate, but advocate for themselves.
Right.
And how long can you sustain that? Like you never start your life if you can't, like, you give everything to this work and the work doesn't compensate you properly. But a lot of it is about understanding no one's going to come and do it for you. Like you have to learn how to be your own advocate. And it's so terrifying because, like I said before, art is a very personal thing, and a rejection feels like it's hard. It's not like you're making widgets and people just prefer gadgets. It's you're selling yourself with your art. And when somebody says like, I don't think you're worth that, they're like, oh my gosh, they think I'm worthless. Oh my gosh, I'm rejected. Oh, and it's really hard to learn to separate you personally from the work. It's really hard. Like I still struggle with doing that. I'm not the best advocate for myself. I think I've done okay. Like I said, I've survived, but this is something I wish could be taught better to kids in school, like take business classes, accounting classes, understand taxes, because then even when they start making money, like they don't know what to do with it. Like I still remember years and years and years and years ago, I was working with another freelancer who it was April, and he's like, ugh, I have to write another $20,000 check to the IRS. I'm like, what? Why are you paying the IRS a big sack of money like that? Aren't you doing your estimated quarterly payments? And he's like, the what now? And I'm like, oh my God. How would he know? How would he know when nobody tells him? It's not ever brought up in like it's like the secret magical guarded knowledge that, like, you're not supposed to know how to make money, and you're not supposed to know how to report the money. You're not supposed to be anything with the money, you silly artist. Just go doodle your dreams and we'll pay you if we feel like it. That's kind of what every young crop of artists is up against. But I think it's that's why I appreciate people like Steven Silver so much, because he makes that a big part of his message, just the business side. and like you said, like the personal, like have respect for yourself, and don't, like when you undersell yourself, you're not showing respect for your own art. How can you expect other people to do that
Right.
for you? Like no one's going to do it for you. There's no like pinstriped wearing, cigar chomping network executive that's going to come and make you a star, kid. It doesn't happen. It never did. That was always a fantasy. And when you look at the biographies of every artist that you admire, everyone who's, you know, made it in the industry, like, boy, they had to push. They had to push. They had to advocate for themselves. They had to knock on doors. They had to drag their portfolios around and shove it in the faces of people. Like they had to be in the right elevator at the right time. Like a lot of it is putting yourself out there, being vulnerable to rejection, because that's another thing. Like rejection is ever like so much harder to take now these days, because everything's like just nothing is private anymore. Everything is super public, and that makes it really hard when like something doesn't go your way or you make a mistake. It's just there's no take backsies. And like I used to say, like, put everything that you draw online, put everything out there. But now I'm like, oh crap. Like, what if someone does a Google search for me and this crappy drawing pulls up? Like, I don't want them to think that that's what I do. So now I'm like rethinking everything that I've been living by my whole career. Like, I'm wondering if I need to be a little more judicious about what I post. I'm not. I like to post a lot. So I'm just going to post the same crap. But now I'm going to feel stranger about it. I'm going to feel awkward, more awkward than usual about it. But oh gosh, I hate that this is the theme of every single interview that I've done with you. But what was the question?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But I like where it went, which leads me into the segue of where I know every summit I normally have. Well, this is the theme. I think the one thing that I've been talking about more often than not this summit is about marketing. Hold that thought one moment. Hold on. All right. So picking up from here. So if I had to put a theme on this year, it would probably be about marketing. And that's the thing I keep thinking about more and more. And I forgot which I was listening to someone doing a lecture on how to become a New York Times bestseller. And it was talking about all these different things, and here's where you need to actually send this to. Here's the different people you need to put this out to. It needs to be in this particular bookstore and everything like that. And the thing they said, and it stuck with me, and they said, bottom line, no one wants to buy your book. No one is interested in reading your book. You have to explain to them why they want to read your book.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also, I thought well of that carrying off to, I'm always trying to sell courses. No one wants to buy my course. I have to explain to them why they need it. No one wants to watch your animation. No one gives a damn. And it's like, we have to learn that other aspect, because again, as artists, it's like we feel that if it's pretty, they will come. They will come and see it. They'll say, "Oh my God, this is incredible." No, it doesn't work that way. So you have to learn the other aspects of getting it out there. And I think there almost needs to be a marketing for animators or artists or social media for artists. I see a lot of those that are kind of online as well, especially as far as 2D art or painting and things like that. I'm not sure if there's one for animators yet. So,
Well,
um,
if we're going back to books, there's a great book by Dave Levy on uh, book, and I forget exactly what it's called. Hold on, David B. Your Career in Animation. Yeah. So, I have a copy somewhere, but I didn't prepare. But it's a great book on just about what we've been talking about. It's specifically geared to animators and how to market yourself. And he just updated it for the I think a year or two ago. Just did an updated edition to account for technology changes, and yeah, it's a great. You should interview Dave.
okay, I have to look that up.
Yeah, I'll send it. I'll send it to you.
muted. Okay, there's my voice. Chris, can you say something? Okay, you're muted still. Let me unmute you. Try now. Huh, where did your voice go? Ah. Dude, what the heck? Grass is in green room. Why are you in green room? Ah, wait a minute. Thought. Let me undo something here.
Talking to the chat. Well, actually,
there it is. Duh.
There we go. People in the chat say they can hear us, but I don't know if they mean just you or both of us.
Let's see. Dude, where did my chat windows go?
Mine is in the upper right corner of your video.
Okay, so my question is, okay,
nice.
So you hear us. Do you hear any, Chris, if you can talk, like, recite the alphabet, see if you hear any echo.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. Yeah, I think I'm going to bet they don't hear an echo because they probably would have said something.
In theory, yeah.
Yeah, we're testing for echo here. There's no echo. It's beautiful.
Oh, that is so awesome to hear. Okay. Yeah, I had to do some digging yesterday and it was really weird. One of the first videos I looked up, the person had my exact setup. He was using a Rodecaster Pro, feeding into Ecamm Live. And I'm going like, I was like, this is surreal.
Huh, interesting.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, sound is perfect. No echo. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Big thumbs up from everybody. That's awesome.
Dude, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, this is like, because I was like, I didn't hear an echo, you didn't hear an echo. I was like, well, maybe it's not on the recording. Damn it, it's on the recording. So, so how do I fix that?
Yeah.
Dude, this has been really awesome.
Cool.
Are you busy Saturday? What's your schedule looking like?
I've got a gig on Friday night. I might be driving, believe it or not, to New Jersey on Saturday, but if I don't, I'll let you know. That's what's on my calendar anyway.
Okay. No, I'm doing I was about to say I'm doing a little workshop, a harmony workshop. So it's like you can feel free to sit in because I'm going to be doing the rigging 101 because I think a lot of people are always freaking out about stuff. I'm going, let me introduce you to the node view and we're going to rig a stick figure. Stick figure has no eyes, no mouth, nothing. He's a stick.
Just real basic, yeah.
Really basic. Yeah. But the idea is once you learn that, you can do whatever with it. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Let me know if you have time, and otherwise I'll just send you the recording. So
either way, thank you for doing that. That's all. I will let you know. I haven't figured out my definite plan yet on Saturday, but we'll see.
Cool.
Awesome.
Dude, I'm stupid excited that there's literally a thing that you have to set up in Ecamm that's called echo cancellation, but you can't turn it on if you haven't turned it on in your preferences. You can't turn it on once you've turned on the live, because I saw the checkbox. Yeah, I saw the checkbox. I was like, huh, that looks like it's there. But that's one of the things I had to change. And there's also a setting I had to change on my Rodecaster Pro, which again, love that. I don't know if you've ever messed with one or not, but
I haven't.
Yeah. Let's see. I have like a what is it? Little sound pads I can play with. Like, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We all need that in our lives.
So yeah, crickets.
Yeah. That's funny you have that. I have a Roland multi-pad that I use and for some of the bands I'm in. And I haven't used it in a while, thank God, but I do have a one-shot sound sample of that if we're ever at a gig and we finish a song and there's just like nobody's responding, I hit that and I adjust the volume so it's like really low in the room and no one really notices it except for a couple people and they're looking around like, wait, I hear crickets. Anyway,
Love it.
when it works, it's the funniest thing ever.
There you go.
Yeah, nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
dude. Again, 1001 thanks for that. Um, I'm again still blown away. If anyone is, I stopped using. I think I stopped using Animate before they even officially changed their name over. Um, but if anyone makes me kind of go, huh, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. Oh wow, they're doing that. That's kind of cool. The one thing
Yeah.
I will officially say this, because you and I have been in the game long enough to remember when there was Macromedia and Adobe, and I loved that because Adobe would come out with something and go, hey, we made this, and Macromedia would go, bet, okay, let's do this instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this cool thing of leapfrog. And I
Right.
think, in theory, don't quote me, what's interesting is seeing some of the stuff that Adobe is finally, yes, Adobe, if you're listening, finally starting to listen to animators. Damn it. So the act that they're putting up stuff, and I think it actually causes other people to go, I think we can do that better.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have newcomers like Procreate going, oh yeah, we can do something like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the presentation of Procreate Dreams, but what was the interface, the dimensions they can use? 1 million by 1 million pixels. What?
Really?
Why? Because there's like the evidently Procreate can already do 16K, which I didn't even know was a thing.
I didn't either.
But Procreate Dreams, I think they said they're boasting a 1 million by 1 million pixels area, and I'm like,
I can't even.
really?
Yeah.
What alien technology is this? So
I'd get lost in that for sure. To your point too, being at Adobe Max last week and meeting teams like Astute Graphics who were there from the UK, and then I was a guest artist at Sense Labs booth. I think I mentioned that yesterday, but the Astute Graphics team, by the way, Astute makes awesome plugins for Illustrator. It just makes Illustrator much more intuitive to draw in. They were also using the Sense Labs booth to demo their plugins, and I was showing them some of the things that Animate can do since it was Flash 4 in terms of how you manipulate vectors so quickly and easily. And their jaws were dropped and on some of the very basic, simple things you can do with vectors in Animate. They're like, wait, what? So they're actually kind of taking note too, to maybe possibly someday make their plugins, do other things that they didn't even think of yet. But that's all based on old 20-year-old technology of just because the drawing engine and Animate is so different.
yes.
I
remember when they're like back in the day, there was but I remember buying a book and it was how to illustrate in Flash, because I remember hating, absolutely loathing. I've only started to like it recently. The pen tool versus like when you can just bend a line inside of Flash, when at the time was, and people were doing these really gorgeous pieces. I'm going like, why doesn't Illustrator do this? Because it would make life so much easier.
There's a really cool tool with one of Astute plugins that I was talking to one of the team members there, and I said, here's a funny story. I was in the shower, and my wife was long hair. There was one of her hairs on the wall, on the tile wall, and it just so happened to look like the profile of a face. But I started like pushing and pulling it to make it to basically draw with it, and I went, wait a minute, this is a vector drawing engine right here, just the way the line was interacting. And I mentioned that to the Astute team, someone at the Astute team, and he's like, wait, here you go. And he pulled out a tool that basically acts like that in Illustrator, where you can kind of reform the stroke itself by pushing and pulling it. So people are taking notice. It's just, I think it's our job to say, hey, this would be cool if stuff worked a certain way. And I think people want to make those tools,
I think, and that's one of the things where I try to do, I know with Toon Boom, where I think a lot of people are saying, well, Toon Boom needs to do this. And I go, have you actually reached out to them? Same thing with Astute Graphics. Same thing actually with Adobe, because I will say this. I think Adobe, like, again, finally listen, because I think animators were asking for a while, and they said, here are the requests that we've actually had over the last 12 years. Yes, Adobe, I did say that. But it's like, and they finally said, "Oh, we people can actually, since we're not doing games anymore, I'm going to quit jabbing on Adobe while you're on the mic because that's not fair to you." So I'll be quiet. But yeah, I think especially right now, it's easy where people write stuff. Always tag people, whether it's the phone company, whatever. If you're trying to call someone and it doesn't work, tag them on social media and kind of go,
Yeah.
"Hey," like. And by the way, that's not just with a negative thing. If they do a good thing, that's good too.
Right.
Which I will say this, I think there was a weird glitch in Premiere that kept bugging up, and I think they fixed it in the last update. So thank you, Adobe. If it's not fixed, I will be sending you more emails. But no,
Yeah,
I'll say publicly.
There's even a wish list form for Animate. There's a link that you can. It might even be for all applications. I don't know. I don't remember. But at least for Animate, where if you have a wish for a feature, yeah, they want to know, like, what is it. So they'll definitely run it up the flagpole if there's a lot of people are requesting the same thing. And so yeah, they're
I think
constantly trying to.
the funniest things about them, and I was trying to explain to someone that said Adobe is like this huge apartment complex, but it has multiple buildings, and the people in the Premiere building aren't talking to the people in the After Effects building, who aren't talking to the people in the Illustrator building, and it's like, because y'all have this feature over here. Can y'all put that over there?
I'm reminded of that daily, because even I mentioned this during my session last week, when I was applying easing. The terminology for easing and Animate is the complete opposite for Premiere Pro and After Effects. Easing in means something totally different, the complete opposite in various applications. Even just look at their icons. Some are the same color, some aren't anymore, because one team said, nope, we're not going to follow what you are telling us to do, marketing department. So yeah, I've heard the same internally, that a lot of teams are just in their own little private Idaho doing what they're doing and trying to meet their deadlines and all that. But yeah, I imagine that's got to be tough. Something like, I'm trying to think of what the keyboard shortcut command is. In Animate, to import something, it's Command R. In every other application, it's Command I. Well, why doesn't Animate just switch it, to Command? But Command R is something else, or Command I is the info box. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I've ever opened up the info box. Unless it was by accident, because I thought I was importing something and I forgot what application I'm in. And I know they give us the ability to customize all your keyboard commands, but the last thing I'm going to do when I open up the application after installing it is start just changing all my keyboard commands to match other applications. It's just, I don't know. It's just the last thing I'm thinking of. But
it's like the video games. I don't play enough video games, but I know one of the pet peeves my wife has is like where they switch up the gaming system, or the controls. Like, why did you do that from game to game? I'll tell you one that I complain about it, but I haven't complained about enough to make it official. The rulers in Photoshop, you can set it up for picas. You can centimeters, millimeters, and all that stuff, and inches. You can set it as %, which I love, because you can go, oh, let me just set my guide at 50%. Why is % not available in any of the other rulers? It's a stupid thing. It's like,
oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, I was like, because I always feel maybe they've added it. Damn it, they still haven't. So it's like, but yeah, it's like that. It's a little drop down thing. It's like, why is that not an option? And maybe
I'm sure they could do it. I bet you just not enough people ask for it, so they just don't make it a priority.
Yeah,
interesting. Huh.
And speaking of, let me yell at our sponsor for a second. Hi, Toon Boom fam. The one thing I haven't written in yet is when you're doing colors, because the good grief, the dynamic color system which has been around as long as I've known about Toon Boom products, like even back in Toon Boom Studio, the ability, like if you've done 5,000 frames and it said, oh yeah, his cape isn't fuchsia, it's more of a lime green, and you update where it says cape and all your frames are done. That is awesome. And again, it's been there since the beginning of time. The one thing that hasn't been there yet is there's no hex code for the colors. And I'm like, and I'm thinking like, I don't know if anyone's like, maybe no one's asked for that. But especially if they're coming over from Flash or Flash M8, they're going to be like, hey, well, where can I set the hex code? So
That's
they've
interesting.
got RGB, they've got all the hue, saturation, and value, but where's the hex code? So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anyone wants to, if any programmers are listening and you want to write that in, or matter of fact, I'll just grab the snippet and send it to run it up to Flagpole and go, yeah, because 23 hasn't happened yet. I know we're on version 22 right now. And my lovely Toon Boom family is almost as secretive as Apple when they're working on stuff. So I have no idea. That's not even an NDA conversation. That's like, I don't know.
Right.
So,
Right.
like one day, I don't know. So
Outside the radar, probably. Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Dude, all right, I'm going to grab some lunch before we have to kick back in. But again,
Oh
I
yeah.
really
No.
appreciate this.
Anytime, my man.
Yeah, we got some music video stuff to talk about. So
Yes, I love that. That's awesome. Let's keep that going.
awesome. All right,
man.
To everyone, and thank you for everyone who stuck around. Thank you for helping us with the sound test, and hopefully it'll be ready for Mike Morris is going to be coming in, doing a live storyboard thing on Friday. So getting this set up early. All right,
cool.
Signing off for lunch. This is Tony Ross with the 2D Animation Virtual Summit with my special helper here, Mr. Chris Mudbubble joining us. All right, dude. Talk to you.
Peace. Later. Bye.